Hi, I'm Ryan Moser, and welcome to Pricing Moments. This episode started with an idea that I'm genuinely passionate about and one that I believe isn't talked about nearly enough. I've always felt there's huge leverage in the role of market research in shaping strategy and carving out a distinctive value proposition. The ability to understand dimensions of value that matter most to customers, see where your competitors sit, and then make an intentional choice to where you want to be is, in my view, the secret to building a standout business. That connection between research and strategic positioning is not as widely understood as it should be. That's the exact topic I wanted to explore, and that's what prompted me to invite today's guest. Laura Troyani is the founder of PlanBeyond, a market research firm that helps companies find the insights that fuel their growth. Her perspective on this was incredibly insightful, and I'm excited to share our conversation with you. So let's get to it. Hi, I'm Ryan Moser, your host of Pricing Moments, and today we're going to build a bridge from market research to having a powerful value proposition. And I couldn't have a better guest for doing that. Laura Troyani is the founder of PlanBeyond, a market research firm that helps companies find insights that fuel their growth. Laura, great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So Laura, for people who aren't familiar with you and your work, can you please start by sharing a bit about what PlanBeyond, what PlanBeyond does, and second, the types of clients that you typically work with?
Yeah, sure. So PlanBeyond, we're a boutique market research firm, which is another way of saying we're small but high touch. Everyone knows the euphemism there.
Yes.
And really, we work with just about anyone and everyone. So, I say we've done work from Luxembourg to Australia and everything between, and that covers some pretty large enterprise organizations down to some small startups and NGOs. But I would say what makes really the types of clients we work with, what makes them the same is that they're coming to us often with those initial, I'd say, business strategy questions around, who should we be targeting? How do we sell this to them? What do we sell it to them? Through what channels or via what pricing or through a medium. So regardless of the fact that our clients are extremely diverse, the fundamental questions that they bring to us are actually quite similar.
Okay, that's a good overview. So what I want to transition to is like market research and like what is it? And you've already started to touch on it, but just to give the audience an overview of and it sounds like there are many things that it can that it can encompass.
It sure can. And, I'd say at its core, market research, as I think about it, is risk mitigation. Um, you know,
Oh, interesting.
you're, whether you're a senior executive, you're leading a functional area, you're leading a team, you're making decisions. Some of those decisions, pretty basic, day-to-day things. Others have risk. Sometimes a little bit of risk, sometimes big risk. And so where I think market research, what it does, it's about helping these leaders mitigate the risk in some of those bigger decisions. And some of those risks can be because it might hurt their reputation if they make the wrong call, or it could alienate customers because they price themselves incorrectly, or they could spend their internal resources incorrectly in building up a product or a roadmap that doesn't align to what their market needs. So it's a very general way of saying what market research is. And yet I would argue it's why people should think about leveraging us as a tool.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it sounds like this is a really powerful tool for shaping shaping a company strategy,
Absolutely.
in effect.
I mean, definitely, right? Because again, fundamentals of strategy. Who's your customer?
Right.
What do
Yeah,
you sell
exactly.
to them? What, how do you price it? Absolutely. These are the really big, scary, hairy questions that strategists need to be thinking about, and where with the right types of data and intelligence, we can help them make better, hopefully smarter, more informed decisions.
Yes. So one of the things I think about when I think about market research is the dimensions of value, and the way that I would define that is what are the criteria that your customers are using to either choose you or a competitor. So first, I expect this is something you touch on in your business. Like, how do you help companies figure out which ones really matter to their customers?
So value, value is such a tough one, right? Because
Yeah.
there's tangible value and there's intangible value. Like here I am sitting in my home office. I could choose to spend way too much money to replace my roof, but it's not too much money because the value saved, the
Yes.
money saved, so there's ROI there, tangible value. Then you've got your intangible values. The example I always love to give is those doggy DNA test kits. What's the value in that?
Yeah, it's
Well,
it's a great question.
I purchased it, so I can tell you there's
Yeah,
value, but it's intrinsic, right?
right.
There's which has value. And so I'm coming up with these very crazy, seemingly, very different examples because they both have value. And so back to, what does market research do to help companies define value? We explore that. So we have to be able to figure out how are we going to dig in with customers or prospects to understand what is it that they need and want, or what they're trying to avoid, because both are value. They're just different types of value.
Yes, different types of value. Absolutely. So, and the way I also think about this is it's a great way of finding your unique spot in the market, right? Because part of a strategy is making different trade-offs between these dimensions because you typically can't hit all of them at the same
Mhm.
uh, at the same time. What do you see companies is usually getting wrong about market research? A bit beyond the obvious, which I assume is like not doing it at all.
Oh yeah, I mean the don't do it is always the the obvious one
Yeah.
out of the gate. But I think a fear that a lot of organizations have is it's going to take too long. I've got to make decisions. I've got to make them today or tomorrow. I just can't wait. And in fairness to those individuals, if we were talking 10 years ago, I might have to say, "Ooh, you're right. I'm so sorry." It does take quite some time. But, fast forward to today, we are getting our clients results in as little as 4 weeks, answering some really, again, really major strategic questions. And that's because of, tools, technology, software, processes that we have available to us that let us get those answers to them very quickly. So for anyone who's trying to make the excuse, oh, it just takes too long, I would say you're not really talking to folks who can do the job well.
That makes sense. It's also an interesting perspective because how long does it take to launch the wrong product, figure out you've launched the wrong product, and then launch another product? It seems like the cost of like making an error is potentially so high. Like the cost of learning in that way is so high
Well,
that
so so you're getting to like one piece of it, right? Without a doubt, which is okay. If let's talk software, right? If you're building out your product roadmap and it takes you 6 months to release a major feature, what's 4 weeks of research to inform 6 months of the right development? So that's one piece of the equation. And then, I would say, hey, if you're like, hey, Laura, what's the second thing people get wrong about research? Is that they go, it costs money. I just don't know that I want to spend the money. But again, let's use the same example of a 6-month software development cycle. How expensive is that? Like, how many developers did you just use and an overhead to get that done versus a 4 to 5 week market research project? Seemed a little like this, the
y-
numbers seem pretty easy to me.
yeah, that makes a ton of sense. It's yeah, I mean the thing I encounter even in my business is getting customers to think about time to value instead of just time to deliver something.
Hmm. Absolutely. But that's a big piece of it, right? So who are you working with? Are they ready to take that moment in time to take a pause to go, yes, this data, this information, this approach is valuable enough that it's worth us taking a pause. Not a big pause, mind you,
Yeah,
but
but a
little,
pause.
but a pause. And if folks aren't comfortable with that, I say, okay, that's it's your organization, it's your business. You need to do what's right for you. We thankfully are obviously working with clients who go, yes, we recognize the value in that very tiny pause because it's going to inform everything else we do this year.
Now, I bet a lot of founders or people on lean teams thinking after this, well, this sounds great, but I'm going to have a huge research budget. So for those teams, like, where do you suggest people start? Because they have to start somewhere. Like, what are the highest ROI, like scrappy first steps that people can take if they are starting on market research?
Absolutely. So I always tell folks, gosh, being a startup, and I've been there, I've been in startups. It's constant triaging, right? Every single day, what's
Yes.
the biggest fire? Deal with that one. And yeah, there's some little tiny fires back there. That's
Yeah.
cute.
Usually, yep.
You deal with the big one, right? And so I would say with market research, it's actually no different. We sit down, we do work with startup founders and other startup leaders and go, hey, tell us what you have to learn. Right. Like, what are the things that you wish you had answers to today? And usually it's never one thing, right? It's
Yeah.
usually
It's usually a few.
of 4 or 5. And then we say, okay, great. We've already started to cull down that kind of crazy mashup of things in your head to 4 tangible things. And then we say, okay, now let's say it's 5 weeks from now, it's 6 weeks from now. If you could have an answer to any of these one things, what would give you the most peace of mind or comfort to know that you would have an answer to this? Amazingly, we usually get an answer to that. And so by going through that process of prioritization, essentially, we get to the thing that's so clearly, therefore, the thing that we need to be able to explore farther.
That's first, like, that's great. And like, that's a lot of that very much lines up with the way I think about data and metrics. Like, is this metric, if this metric changes, does it change how I think about the business? And does it let me change a business outcome? If the answer is no, like, I don't care. So it's like, and it sounds very much the same. Like, is this piece of research giving me insight that'll help me move the business?
Absolutely. I mean, I was just speaking yesterday with a small business owner in a very, very unique, tangible goods space. And they had to make decisions about honestly, their warehouse or distribution center and if they should get a bigger one or not. And, this big decision was around like, do we make this investment? Don't we make this investment? So for them, it felt very, very very, very tangible. And where really our conversation ultimately evolved was saying, well, what types of customers are you beginning to bring into the business? Do the types of customers and the types of jobs that they're going to bring to you justify long-term having this larger space? And so it helped for them bring more clarity to this decision that felt very gut feel, like, oh my gosh, do we sign the lease? Don't we sign this lease? To going, huh, okay, let's look at that customer volume historically. Let's see if the mix is shifting, the types of jobs they're bringing are shifting. And therefore, can it actually cover this incremental overhead cost?
So one thing every consultant or agency has to face is, like, you come up with these brilliant insights and you hope that they don't sit in a PowerPoint file and gather dust. So, how do you ensure that the findings actually change strategy, actually move strategy instead of just sitting on the shelf?
Definitely. I think all of that really actually starts with day one of the project. It has not, yes, it has a lot to do with how we
Yeah.
it comes to life. But day one, we really do ask all of our clients, really the one fundamental question, which is, again, fast forward from now, it's 5 to 6 weeks, the data is back. What must you have answered? And we ask this not just of the core client contact that we have, but if we're doing a kickoff, we're asking all the members of the team that. We want to know what is so pressing for them that they have to know. And we make sure that we are structuring our research and the design of the methodology and the collection around those core questions that they need answered. So by the time, again, now we fast forward, it's 5 to 6 weeks, the data's in, we've done the analysis, report is ready. We go, hey guys, those really critical questions you have, here's some of the answers. Right. And by the way, and this is where PlanBeyond is differentiated from other research firms, we say, here are the so what's of that. So
Mhm.
for instance, there,
Yes. Yeah.
recently did a project with a client. They actually are in the business services, business consulting space. We need to understand how did their customers or prospective customers conceptualize them. Kind of very classic 2x2 matrix
Yeah.
types of things in terms of, types of clients they served, complexity of services offered, et cetera. And we were very able to cleanly map exactly where they fit on that 2x2 matrix by talking to this really nice mix of individuals. And so out of the gate, yes, that answered one of the fundamental questions they have for themselves, which is, what do people think of us and why don't they use us? Oh, it's because you're right here on the matrix. Great. But still what? So from there we go, okay, team, let's talk about what it means to move and migrate. Maybe it's, to this quadrant or that quadrant or that quadrant. What does this mean for your organization? Let's talk about resourcing. Let's talk about your marketing. Let's talk about this and that. And so by bringing in more tangible implications of those answers, it then begins to drive a much broader conversation and therefore more value to the research.
I love that. I also want to back up to something you said that was really important. It was talking to all the members of the team. If the CEO thinks one thing and the CFO has a different idea of what's important and the CMO has a different idea of important, that's a really good way for your strategy, your brilliant plans to get them dashed on the rocks. Yeah, so it's just super. Yeah.
That's a great reason to have research then, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Another classic pushback. Why did you do research? I already know the answer. We've got to really be thoughtful about how we
Right.
respond to that one. But what you just, the example you just gave, the CEO this one perspective, CMO this one, maybe CFO always has a very different one, especially when it comes to spending money. And so that's one of the reasons why I love research, because you have these obviously extraordinarily talented individuals in an organization coming to a problem with, their background. And so they're seeing it in the way that their background has guided them to see it. And so we can use the research to really break that tie in a way that is honestly respectful, where we go, hey, team, you guys all have these different hypotheses. We frame them as hypotheses. And we go, let's use the research to tell us what the market, what is aligning with where the market wants. And therefore, let's use that data to then guide the business decisions. And couched in that framework of not, you're right, you're wrong, you're crazy, because there's always a crazy, but hey, you all have these unique ideas and perspectives. Let's leverage the data to test that and validate that. And we'll go from there. It really brings, again, a much more humane and rational framing to the conversation that everyone can rally behind.
I love that. So Laura, what I'm going to finish up with is a quick lightning round. So just quick questions, top of mind answers. So I got 3 of them. What's one myth about market research you wish that every business leader would stop believing?
That it takes too long. It doesn't. It'll take you 4 to 5 weeks. You can get amazing answers in no time, and you won't have to worry that you made the wrong decision.
Now, if you could ask customers just one question to uncover what they truly value, what would it be?
For our clients, it's, hey, it's 5 or 6 weeks from now. You're desperate to know an answer to one thing. What is that one mission critical thing that you need an answer to? Because that's how we can help you.
And then the last one, what is the biggest missed opportunity you see over and over again when companies are when companies position themselves in the market?
They're scared to be different. There's such a need to be wanted and liked that they're too likely to follow what everyone else is doing and honestly not take a risk, be different, and actually offer customers something that is different and perhaps better.
That's such an interesting trap to fall into, because all of the value comes from finding a way that being different is something that customers value in a need that's not being filled. So it's so interesting that companies often fall into that trap.
It is, but it's risk aversion, right?
Right.
Logically, rationally, we know differentiation is important, but our fear of losing out and seeing someone be successful makes us go, oh, maybe that's what I need to be doing. And so it's really challenging dynamic to have to balance.
All right. Well, Laura, this has been a masterclass in connecting the dots from customer insight to market strategy. We've covered what research is, how to use it, and how to make sure it actually drives the business forward. So, Laura, thank you so much for sharing your expertise today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was fun.
So, Laura, where can people find you if they want to connect or learn more about PlanBeyond?
Absolutely. Well, we go to the website, PlanBeyond.com. So check us out there. You can always find me and our business on LinkedIn at any time.
All right. Well, again, Laura, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye. What a great conversation with Laura Troyani. My biggest takeaway is that market research isn't just a way to shape business strategy. It's a tool for mitigating your biggest business risks. A huge thank you again to Laura for sharing her expertise. To learn more about her work, you can find her at PlanBeyond.com and on LinkedIn. And if you found this conversation valuable, the best way you can support the show is by hitting subscribe here on YouTube, following on LinkedIn, or leaving a comment with your biggest takeaway. And finally, if you're looking to turn these kinds of strategic insights into a powerful pricing model for your own business, you can learn more about how I help at proteanpartners.co. I'm Ryan Moser. This has been Pricing Moments. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.